Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining me here today. I'm going to be going over my top 7 favorite modifications to my XSR700 and a couple extra, and explaining why I like them so much. We're going to be skipping the intro today. I'm going to be making a few changes to the channel, for the better in my opinion, so stay tuned for that in future videos. If you're new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button, give me a like down below, and for those of you returning, welcome back. Without further ado, let's get to it. The XSR900 bars were definitely a big upgrade for me. They weren't very expensive, maybe $110 shipped. It's a factory Yamaha part, so the holes that are for the controls were already pre-drilled. The centering marks for the handlebar clamps were already there. They already have the 7/8 size for your grips and your controls, the 1 1/8 size in the center for the mounting. So while it's for a different motorcycle, it fits the 700 perfectly. They're about 1.5 inches shorter in width, which brings your arms closer into the bike. They're also about 1.5 inches shorter in rise, which puts you closer to the front of the tank and has your body weight leaned more towards the front of the motorcycle, putting more weight on the front end. That was a big change for me in a good way, because in turns and on the highway at higher speeds, the front end felt as if it had a little bit of flutter. So by getting more weight over the tank and more weight towards the front of the bike overall, it definitely took the flutter itself away. So now on the freeway, when I'm changing lanes or in turns on back roads, the front end doesn't feel as light and twitchy as before. While we're on the topic of the handlebars, the Biltwell Renegade grips were a big upgrade for me as well. The overall diameter of them is much bigger than the factory grips, and there's more of a cushion to them. In the wintertime, I find myself with scrunched up material in the bottom of my glove with the factory grips. With the new grips being bigger in diameter, my hand isn't as scrunched up and cramped on the grip, giving me a better feel overall, and at the same time providing less fatigue while riding. The Vortex levers were more of an aesthetic modification for me. I like the look of the blacked out levers versus the factory silver ones. The adjustment for the clutch and the brake was a worthwhile improvement as well, allowing me to fine-tune everything the way I would like. My quad lock handlebar phone mount is definitely a welcomed addition as well. It's a very solid and secure mount, and at the same time allows for plenty of adjustment depending on which way I need my phone oriented for maps. It's a simple removal. It's a very easy connection. Just line it up and snap it on, and it's solid, secure, not going anywhere. The Dart Marlin Flyscreen was another welcomed addition when commuting to work. Anything above about 50 miles per hour, and of course with any naked bike that doesn't have a fairing in the front, you're going to feel quite a bit of wind. Above 50, the wind, although manageable, was something that would fatigue you after about an hour or so of riding. With the windscreen and commuting to and from work on the freeway, it was definitely a welcomed addition. I don't feel any wind on my chest anymore, any wind on my helmet. There's no buffeting. It definitely provides a much easier and relaxed ride, something I highly recommend. It may not be the most beautiful or photogenic fly screen, but it's also not ugly in my opinion. It's hard to kind of capture its true shape in photos and even videos, so hopefully this comes through. The Brogue Motorcycles gauge relocation was a welcomed addition as well. The factory gauge position is above the handlebars, right where the mounts are, and by moving it up and off to the side as well as angling it closer to the rider, it gets rid of any sun glare on it while riding, puts it in the view of the rider, so that way you don't have to look down and take your eyes off the road in order to see your speed, your RPMs, what gear you're in, your engine temperature, anything like that. So getting it up and closer was a definite plus. I believe that it provides a better look overall as well. Cleaning up the bike and definitely the dashboard area. Definitely a worthwhile and necessary modification, in my opinion, to the XSR700 and the MT-07s is the exhaust. From the factory, it's just way too choked down. You don't get the true feel and effect of the bike until you open it up. Those of you who have an XSR or an MT-07 with an exhaust can attest. I chose the Yoshimura exhaust. I definitely like the look of it overall. The works finish bronzes really nicely once it's been heat cycled a couple times. Let me give you a sound clip of it at idle, as well as with a few revs. At idle, it's not much louder than stock, which is appreciated, especially in traffic and when you're trying to get out of a neighborhood quietly on your way to work early in the morning. But as soon as you start to open it up and really get onto the throttle, it totally wakes up and changes the whole dynamic of the bike. It's almost egging you on to go faster and faster within reason. Definitely changes the whole bike's persona into more of a hooligan, and one of the reasons that I love it so much. These next couple mods that I'm going to talk about are kind of a combination to really clean the whole tail end of it up and also integrate some of the lighting. This tail cowl is from a company called Sea Racer. They're based in Greece. I'll leave a link down below for any of the modifications that I've listed here today. It's a small company out of Greece. They manufacture parts for the XSR700, the SV650, and a few others. They do universal parts for cafe racer builds and things like that. I had the tail cowl piece wrapped in a brushed aluminum finish to match the tank itself. Although this isn't gloss in comparison to the gloss on the tank, in the sunlight overall it's almost impossible to tell, especially while you're riding in traffic. In photos, it's somewhat visible, but overall, I just wanted it to match the tank itself. The fit and finish of that is awesome. It fits onto the factory seat with just a couple hooks on the bottom, and then tucks into the backside of the seat itself, making it pretty secure. It comes around the tail light itself and frames that very nicely. The tail light is actually from, I want to say, Moto-Dynamic. I'll have a link for it in the description. It may be Moto-Demic, but I'm pretty sure it's Moto-Dynamic. And it's actually an integrated taillight, so the taillight and the turn signals are in it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there are a few different modes for the stoplight, where it flashes, doesn't flash, or stays flashing when you apply the brakes. And then you can also adjust the way that the turn signals function in terms of an arrow or 3 bars, and they are sequential, so they point in the direction of the blinker that you chose, whether it be left or right. And then last but not least in this whole tail section, the Yoshimura Fender Eliminator Kit. This was the one that I chose specifically because I wanted to retain the stock tail light mounting location, the stock rear fender, and just clean up the section where the plate and the turn signals mounted originally. They do have brackets for the side to mount signals too, but since I did an integrated taillight turn signal combination, I got rid of those completely. Overall, when it comes to this entire tail section, I wanted it to be as clean as possible, and that's why I chose the Yoshimura Fender Eliminator Kit, the integrated taillight, and also the tail cowl from Sea Racer. It's not a piece that I have on the bike at all times. If I'm going around town, I'll leave it on. Typically, if I'm commuting to and from work or on a trip where I need a backpack, I'll take it off and mount my tail bag here. Otherwise, I try to leave it on for the in-town rides and cruises. I think it just complements the bike overall so well. It was something that I waited for at least 2 to 3 months to order, and then in the midst of the corona pandemic, they actually weren't shipping outside of Greece when I ordered it, so I waited for it for a long time. Once I did receive it, it was about 2 weeks or so until I got down to the vinyl shop that a good friend of mine works at to have it wrapped. We tried to match it, like I said, as closely as possible to the tank. At some point in the future, I may be doing a color change on the bike. At that point, I'll just change the wrap on the rear as well. But for now, it's an almost perfect match and really complements the bike overall. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that with the tail cowl itself, they include these passenger delete brackets that take the place of the passenger foot pegs. They're machined to fit the factory holes. These screws are actually hardware from an older Harley Davidson project that I was working on. They just happen to have the same thread pitch. So while they do include Allen head screws, I wanted something a little bit more flush and black to contrast the bracket itself. These next few pieces that I'm showing you are from Broke Motorcycles out of Tucson, Arizona. I did a video on their products before, but I wanted to show you a little bit more in depth what they are specifically. This is the Sprocket guard that they offer. All the hardware is included. They have a couple spacers in the back, and it just gets rid of that factory ugly plastic sprocket guard. They have provisions for the zip ties to secure the emissions hoses, as well as the kickstand switch wiring. Their heel rest guards, they recently started making as well, and match the sprocket guard perfectly in my opinion. The same sort of attention to detail in the slots that they cut into them. Overall, I believe they provide a much better look than just the factory black sprocket cover, and the heel guards themselves being just a stamped steel. These CNC'd aluminum pieces look a whole lot better. I installed the RNG spool axle sliders in the rear to help with supporting it on a rear stand, especially while doing chain maintenance. This is a great storage solution option, and at the same time an axle slider to help prevent any potential damage in the case of a low side or a high side crash. The Shogun frame sliders I added as well, again for crash protection, but they also double as somewhat of a highway peg. Your legs can be a little cramped, but it's definitely nice to throw your foot up on, or even your calf, while you're just cruising down the freeway and get yourself a little bit more relaxed position so you can ride longer. And then the RNG front axle sliders as well, again strictly a protection piece, but at the same time is also a lifting point if you need to get the front wheel up. The RNG radiator guard that I installed, for the same reason, just to protect the radiator itself from stones and things like that. A lot of people ask me where I got these radiator side guards from. These are actually the factory ones as well. Although they may look aftermarket, I haven't done anything with that. So there you have it. Kind of a walk around and in-depth explanation as to why I picked the parts that I did. I'm not finished modifying it. I probably never will. It's definitely a fun project for me, and at the same time something I enjoy riding on a consistent basis. Wintertime is quickly approaching, so I won't be riding as much, but I'm looking into things that can push the season a little bit farther out for me. I'm also interested in trying out the hand guards that are made by Barkbusters for the MT-07 that install on the side and just wrap around the front. They're a one-point installation design, and something that I'm willing to try out and see if it will help extend the riding season further into the fall and winter to keep my hands a little bit warmer in those early morning temps. I hope you guys have enjoyed the walk around and the explanation of the parts that I've added to my XSR. Each individual part hasn't changed the bike a whole lot, but a sum of the parts has definitely changed the overall riding feel, the positioning, and the enjoyment that I get out of the bike. Although I haven't done any drastic modifications to the looks, with each and every part added, it's changed it very much. And when comparing it to pictures that I have before I started modifying it, I really love how it's all come together. If you guys have any questions on any of the things that I've talked about in the video, feel free to comment below. Remember to like and subscribe for more, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Be a good apple. Peace.